I think we can slowly start. Yes? Okay, perfect. So I'll just introduce this webinar, so then the participants who are slightly delayed still have time to join. So my name is Anuska, and I'm project manager at European Schoolnet. So at European Schoolnet we are a network of ministries of education in Europe and beyond, and our mission is to transform education in Europe. And mainly we do so by using digital technologies to boost this transformation. So as some of you have already noticed, I'm wearing a super cool t-shirt, which is the Code Week, EU Code Week t-shirt, because we are actually in the middle of EU Code Week. For those of you who do not know what Code Week is, well, it's an initiative that is carried out by the European Commission. It generally takes place during the month of October. This year is not really EU Code Week, but it's EU Code Weeks. They just didn't add an S to it. And this initiative is about raising awareness on the beauty and the relevance of coding nowadays. So, as an excuse for the EU Code Week, we organized this webinar marathon. So we're having currently 3 webinars that are powered or supported by I-LINC, which is a project that we are carrying out here at European Schoolnet together with All Digital, WeDo and Telefonica on boosting digital skills for young people. Here is the link to the project, and there you can find several resources, and you will find in the project as well, in the community within the project, you will find in a few days the recording of this webinar. So for this evening we have the great pleasure of having here Catherine Roden and Jochen Didden, that work for LEGO Education Academy here in Belgium, and we're very happy to have them here for this webinar on robotics. Well, first of all, because we hear a lot about coding, and as you know, during the Code Week we're all great fan of Code Week. There is this hype on coding, but we all know that coding or visual coding per se might have limits in the implementation. And we think that robotics is a very nice way, educational robotics in particular, is a very nice way for having coding implemented to something tangible and that can boost our creativity. The second reason why we're very pleased to have Catherine and Jochen here today is because actually we all love LEGO. I think that very often adults, when we grow up, we look forward to having children because of having again the possibility of playing. So LEGO probably was part of the imaginary of every child in the last 30 or 40 years, or maybe even more, maybe even 50, I would say. And I think that the fact that LEGO is not just about construction, but is now revamped with this idea of robotics, can just give an idea of the innovation that is very embedded in these tools. So we are all looking forward to hear how LEGO Education can be implemented in our daily practice, I guess with children, but not only. With teenagers as well, and why not with adults. And I'm leaving the floor to Catherine and Jochen to talk about how they see robotics with LEGO Education. And thank you very much again for the two of you for your time and for your willingness to lead this webinar.
No, thanks. Thank you. It's our pleasure to give together with my colleague Catherine the webinar. So first of all, we want to point out we are not English native speakers, so please excuse us if there are some sentences which are not in the right syntactical order. But first of all, my name is Jochen Didden. I'm a lecturer at the PXL University College here in Belgium, and my areas of interest are media, ICT, and together with my colleague Catherine, we are both LEGO Education Academy certified trainers.
Yes, so my name is Catherine. I'm also a teacher at a teacher training for primary education here in Belgium, and I teach science and technology.
Okay, so we go ahead, and the first thing we want to point out are actually our objectives and expectations. With this webinar, within 30 minutes, we want to give you some insight into computational thinking within the 21st century skills. Secondly, we want to give you some ideas of how you could use computational thinking with LEGO Education products, and we choose for LEGO WeDo 2.0 and the Mindstorms EV3. And last but not least, we also want to give you a rubric as an idea, as an evaluation tool for computational thinking, as for the teachers, but also as a self-assessment for the pupils. First of all, we would like to give you more insight about the basic framework of the 20th century first skills, because actually those skills are required for youngsters nowadays to prepare them for a job of tomorrow, which yet doesn't exist at all now. So the 4 C's really are here very important, namely communication, critical thinking, creativity, and collaboration. These 4 C's are the basic framework for the 21st century skills. But if you put all on the things on the table, there are a lot more skills which are required for the job of the future, and we would like to show you a more complete or expanded framework of those skills. So first of all, you see the 4 skills which are highlighted here, namely creativity, which is the lamp above, communication, which is downstairs, the 2 people over here are a collaboration, and last, the critical thinking at the bottom of the screen. But the other interesting skills for the 21st century are problem solving, computational thinking, which is of course our main aspect of today, information skills, ICT skills, media literacy, very important nowadays, social cultural skills, and self-regulation.
So if you design a lesson and you want to integrate 21st century skills, you could try to combine some of these more generic skills like solving a problem by using information skills and doing this while pupils collaborate. So in that way you can use this framework to give your lessons some more foundation.
Okay, we come back to the skills at the end of our presentation with an example. But of course, when we talk about the 21st century skills, and computational thinking is one of them, we would also like to present a definition. According to us, we think this is the most complete definition of what computational thinking is about. Namely, the ability to think logically about a problem and apply techniques for solving it. So as you can see, computational thinking is not only about coding. It really can be done to learn techniques for children, for youngsters, for pupils to solve a problem without using the PC. But of course, afterwards we would like to present the problem as well to a computer, which he can solve then afterwards by, for example, giving correct syntactical use of coding, so they generate an algorithm which can be used in the computer program. This morning when I stood up, I was hungry, and I've got a little example what I did. So first I would like to have a peanut butter and a jelly on 2 slices of bread. So what did I do this morning in my kitchen? I got the 2 slices of bread out of the kitchen. The peanut butter jar, I opened it, I took a knife from the drawer, and then I started with the rest. It was very easy for me to do. And of course, I've got a very advanced level of Google tablet, and I also asked them, hey Google, could you perhaps give me a peanut butter and jelly on 2 slices on the bread, because would not like to do it by myself. And then this was the solution he presented to me. Actually an alien interpretation of the problem I suggested him. So this means we really have to decompose our problem into little parts and propose them to the computer so he can understand the problem and give me a correct solution.
And that is what computational thinking is all about. As you can see here, computational thinking has 4 partial skills, which are decomposition, pattern recognition, algorithmic design, and abstraction. And to make this more clear, we have chosen an example which is typically for Belgium. So we have some French fries we want to prepare. And so if we do this, then first we need some potatoes. Yes, okay, there he is. So we take a potato, then we peel it, and then we cut it into stripes. And then, of course, if we want a package of French fries, we need to do this again and again. And then when we have all these stripes, we will fry them and put them into a bag. And so we will have our French fries. And here you can see the different steps of computational thinking, being decomposition. What do I need to do to make this happen? Then the pattern recognition. We need several potatoes. We need to peel them several times. We need to cut them into stripes several times. So there's the pattern. Then the algorithmic design, the step-by-step plan, which takes you from the beginning to the very end. And then we just need our abstraction, and therefore we take it into another context, which is, in this case, making fried onions. Then also we will need some onions. We need to peel them, need to cut them, and fry them.
So I go on to the next slide. I hope the sound is still okay for everyone. I suppose so. I'm gonna try whether the video is working here in the PDF. I'm not sure, because we also uploaded PowerPoint where there was some technical issues. So we're gonna do it without a video. My apologies for this one. And this is actually about the computational thinking with unplugged coding. So as you can see, there are some cards put down on table, which has some Dutch translation on it. And it says, pick up a cup. It's about putting cups in the right order. Going to the right, putting them down, and then taking up a next cup. So I've still got a few cups over here. Just a minute, I have to drink my cup empty. It's a little improvisation. I'm going to put my camera down like this. So you see two cups, and the first thing is that the pupil has to take the first cup, put it above, going to the right, and then putting it down. Then they take the second cup, going above, going to the right, going again to the right, and putting it down. So they are following actually a certain algorithmic design. If they are not following the design in a proper way, they will not be able to put the few cups on top of each other.
And that is actually the first step in coding we think is the best way to go. If you want to start coding in class, then it's best to start unplugged.
So another example which we would like to use, because we always work in a certain context with our pupils and students, is actually a context which they use in their daily life. For example, when they're getting up and they have to brush their teeth, of course, hopefully also in the evening, that they have to follow a certain way to do this in a successful way. And if you see over here on the writing, it says pick up your toothbrush, find your toothpaste, go to the nearest sink, etc. But you see with bullet number 7, it says brush your teeth for 2 minutes. So actually they are not writing down brush, 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 brush for 100 times, but they're using already a loop or an iteration for 2 minutes. So that means actually in their head they're using already a computational way of thinking. And this is the first step we always like to use, is to write it down so they're really thinking about a problem. The second part we would like to use them is actually to put it in a scheme, to schematize it so it has a universal language for other pupils, but also for other programs and other colleagues to understand the problem. So they have a start and an end, and in between there's a certain process about washing the hands. Washing the hands is an algorithm which has several sub-programs or sub-algorithms. For example, if you look more in detail, you see with the item of rub hands together, they have to make a decision. They have to do it all the time over and over again. And if they decide the hands are not clear, keep on washing the hands. And then afterwards go further on. So you see here different kinds of objects, different kinds of shapes, which also had a certain meaning of use.
So again, we emphasize that computational thinking is more than coding, but coding can be used to develop computational thinking. And so in schools, when you have started to doing this unplugged, you can then use tools, and this can, for example, be LEGO Education tools. So here you can see some coding strings from the LEGO Education WeDo and the LEGO Education Mindstorms, but also Scratch. And we think these are very good tools to start computational thinking or coding, since they are very intuitively encoding. So you don't need any special coding languages or syntaxes that is very for a specialist or for an expert. It's really doing this by using your intuition.
So that's why we prepared a poll, and I hope Anushka can help us out now about a poll. We do it first. Anushka, can you hear us? Is it possible to show the poll to the participants? If not, we go on.
Perhaps we go back to
the... Okay, we go first to this slide, and then perhaps in the meantime Anushka can put it together. We would like to present you a few examples with LEGO products. We choose WeDo 2.0 and, like mentioned before, the Mindstorms EV3. In Belgium, the educational use can differ, of course, in the use in your country. But we noticed that the age of 8 until 13 is ideal to use with the WeDo 2.0. And there's a small overlap, of course, no problem, with the Mindstorms. Of course, the Mindstorm has a more level up complexity of coding, whereas the WeDo 2.0 is more easy and intermediate. The subjects where you can focus on is more broad, on a broad scale of curricula into a scientific area and technical area with the WeDo, and more technical approach and coding approach, of course, for the Mindstorms. And at last, the device which is preferable with the LEGO products. Of course, you can use all crossover devices, but we noticed that using the WeDo 2.0, the use of a tablet is more convenient and more easy to use, more entry level to use with youngsters instead of the program on a PC. Moreover, the PC actually has then more advanced possibilities. We will discuss the questions which are asked in the chat window afterwards. I didn't mention that in front of our presentation. So this is an algorithmic string you see here with the use of WeDo 2.0. We're not going to explain the building blocks, but we prepared a poll. I hope now Anushka can show us the poll. Anushka? Just waiting for 10 seconds, and also, other words, I guess he's drinking a cup of coffee now. No, just kidding. Okay. We are going to do the poll into the... Ah, there it is, superb. Thank you very much. So our question is, what does the building block in the red circle mean? Does it mean the program pauses? The program pauses until the sensor is triggered? The program will go on unless the sensor is triggered. The program pauses for a fixed amount of seconds, or the program will go on for a fixed amount of seconds. I hope you all see the poll, I guess so. So please select one of your answers which could be correct. And we're gonna go further on in 5 seconds. We have got a very tight schedule. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, Oscar or Anushka, you can close the poll. Okay, broadcast results. Normally you should all see the results at the moment, and 47% of you had it correctly. Congratulations. So you didn't know what building blocks were all about.
Well, all of you chose to pause the program. So that's very intuitively. You see the hourglass and it says pause. And then the sensor, it's a bit trial and error perhaps, but still most of you had it right. So this program works very intuitively, which is why it's so easy to use. Then of course you see this string of coding, and it really doesn't have any meaning at this time. So when we teach or when we use LEGO WeDo or LEGO Mindstorms as well with our pupils, we try to put it also in a context. So that is why the next slide gives some more explanation to this. So here you can see LEGO methodology, and it's about helping hands. So we always start from a context, and here it could be one of your pupils having a broken arm and it's in a plaster, so she or he is not able to move his or her hand correctly or in a good way, and then you have this problem, and therefore you can construct or build some device, which you can see here in the picture. It's just an example, it could be something else as well, and then we will code this device. And after that, we will contemplate, which is think about what we have done and share our solutions with others, so they can pick up ideas to improve their own design or their own coding. And that is the continued, so to make this helping hand go faster, to make it pick up larger or heavier things. So these phases, to connect, construct, contemplate, and continue, is the LEGO methodology, which is combining all aspects within the LEGO products. So we always try to do this, and we will now give an example where we illustrate the partial skills for computational thinking with LEGO WeDo.
So as you can see in this slide, on the right you see a string, on the left side you see again computational thinking we do with 4 parts: decomposition, abstraction, pattern recognition, and algorithms. And the problem was that a few weeks ago we went with our pupils to the swimming pool. Very nice. And there was a very big water glide.
It was closed, it was a tube, so you couldn't see the end of the tube.
No. So what did our pupils do? They all went upstairs at the entrance of the water glide, and they all went one after each other into the water glide. Then there was, of course, a problem when they came down at the swimming pool, that they were injured because they were too fast after another into the glide. And actually they made us think about a technical problem they could solve within our lessons in school. So afterwards we came back in school and we thought, okay, perhaps we can use our LEGO products to solve this problem. And we were proposing their problem with the swimming security lights. So they had a few tasks of building a security light, and this is a very minimized model, only the intelligent hub we used over here. So you see there's also a LED at the top of the intelligent hub. I'm just going through the string the students pulled together. So first I'm going to start it on my tablet as well. Hopefully you can see something changing at the light. I don't know. Yeah, I guess it's working. Okay. So first, when the program starts, the LED will turn on red. There's an hourglass who says you have to wait for 5 counts, not seconds, but counts. The LED will turn on green. Then there will be a sound. Then the LED will turn on for a certain amount, so they have to wait. And turn it back on red. They have to wait back again. It will turn on back green, so the next pupil can go into the water glide. It will give a sound back again, and it still has to wait. So this was a solution that our pupils made for the security access. So this would be put it in front of the entrance. As you can see over here, there is a long string which is supposedly too long to use in the program. And they were asked, how can you fine-tune, but how also can you cut down on the code, because you see some patterns coming back. Turning red, waiting, turning red, green, sorry, giving a sound, waiting, and turning red again. So you see over here at the second string that they use a partial of the algorithmic, of the coding building blocks, but then put it into a loop which continuously will go on working. And this is for an example of the pattern recognition.
Of course, they've already decomposed the problem at that time, because they started by writing down their criteria. So for the security light, it should be giving a visual sign, but also giving an audio sign for the safety. In the swimming pool, when there's a lot of sound, you have this sound going on, but then also the visuals. And then there should be a time lapse between the two students going into the water slides. So that's what they first did, decompose. Then they put together an algorithm, saw the pattern, and then we could make an abstraction to another situation where you can use kind of the same patterns. For example, here this could be the entrance of a theme park. Our students really love theme parks, so it could be kind of the same thing, but then I know, I'm sorry.
No problem. It could be kind of the same thing, but for example, the safety issue is very important at the entrance of the theme park. And that's why, for example, we could give a continuous task, which is also one of the things with the LEGO methodology they use, is perhaps use a sensor, because not everyone is going down into the water route at the same speed, but use a sensor. When they pass the sensor, then only the green light will go on back. So here you can see several kinds of ways of giving a continuous task.
Or perhaps they can see the abstraction also in the traffic lights, which work in kind of the same way.
Yeah, when they want to cross the road. Again, you see here another computational thinking of Mindstorms. And again, my apologies about the video, but I will try to send the video to Anushka to upload it afterwards, where you can download the webinar. But we've incorporated a picture as well as a backup. So here you see there was a task in our school, or a problem actually, that we have got few parking lots in front of our school. And we asked our students to come up with a solution, and one of the solutions was to make a PXL barrier. So first of all, you see here a construction of a possible design, and then afterwards they had to code the EV3 so it will work and it will open and close.
Now here you can see in the picture a very simple design for such a barrier. It could be anything, it could be, there are multiple solutions. But then the coding approach can be differently. So we suggest two approaches. The first one is for more experienced users, for Mindstorms or coding in general. And the second one is for more novice users of Mindstorms EV3. So when you are more expert in using this device, you can start from a very complex task, and the task description can be, for example, we must have a barrier which is really safe. So, for example, it cannot close while a car is still underneath it, or you have some motor issues and you're just beneath the barrier. It should stay open then. And you should be able to know, for security reasons, how many cars are on the parking lot at every time, even if some cars have already left the parking place. Also, it should be displayed somewhere so you can keep track of how many cars are already in the parking place. That is a really complex task which pupils will have to decompose in smaller parts to get started. The other way to approach this is a low entry level, where you just give a simple task. As you can see here in the coding string, we need a barrier that can open and close again. So then you also limit the amount of blocks pupils can use, because that is one of the pitfalls we have found in using Mindstorms EV3, that pupils want to use lots of blocks, and while doing that, just doing trial and error all the whole time. It's okay to use trial and error for some period, but it's also a good way to work on computational skills then, to give them a limitation. So just use this block and it will happen. You must complete the task by just using one block. And this limitation makes them think more about the opportunities or the abilities of one building block. So when you have given this one task, this one very simple and low entry task, then you can start building further on this task. So for example, here the barrier cannot open unless there is a given signal. So most of the pupils will incorporate a sensor. We have now chosen a touch sensor in this example you can see on the slide. And so when somebody pushes the touch sensor, then the barrier has to open. And there your algorithmic design kind of kicks in at a very low level again, because although you have given the assignment to use some kind of sensor in second place. So the first task was open and close, and the second task is to use something to make a signal, to give a signal to open and close. So it's the second task, but still the sensor should be integrated before you open and close the barrier. So there you enhance algorithmic patterns. And then again, you can build on this assignment and make sure they are counting how many places are taken, so how many times the barrier opens and closes. And by doing that, you work on pattern recognition, because every time, again and again, you have to push the button open and close. So there you have decomposition, pattern recognition, and algorithmic design in this task, which you can keep on building on and on and on. And then for the abstraction, here you can put it again into another context, and that is where my theme park comes along, because I was a bit too quick earlier. So here you can count the persons that go into the theme park and make some other device, because mostly in Belgium anyway, we use this kind of round structure to go into a theme park. So maybe you have to change some things, but the general pattern stays the same. And on the other hand, you can also make the abstraction by using the personal computer or the tablet, because the blocks kind of differ, and so they have to apply the same way of thinking, but still have to make an abstraction to the blocks they will use.
So what we notice when we use this in our workshops as well, with students, pupils, but also teachers, when you give those decomposed tasks with low entry level, they really are interested in doing more things. They have a success experience at the end of the session, and they will keep on going themselves, keeping them in the flow. If you notice that a lot of students can do already a lot with the EV3, you give them a not decomposed problem. If they need some more guidelines as well, you give them a decomposed problem. So when you see this slide back again, as we presented you at the start of our webinar, the PXL barrier, of course, uses a lot of 21st century skills, but each task always has a different focus on those several skills. For this task, for example, you can focus on creativity, problem solving, of course, computational thinking, communication, and collaboration. But as you can see, communication and collaboration are kind of generic skills or tasks which you can use in all kinds of assignments you give. So perhaps when you want to evaluate your students on their progress, on their products, on their skills, you have to determine on front what kind of skills you want to give more focus on.
Well, I just want to add that communication and collaboration are also, and creativity of course also, are basic values for LEGO Education, because most of the tools are used in twosomes, so you work in pairs, and you have to share your solutions, which is then communication as well.
Okay. Then we come to the last part of our webinar, unfortunately, and it's the use of the rubrics as an evaluation tool. An evaluation tool which pupils can use for a self-assessment, but also teachers can use to determine whether they have developed a skill in a certain way. And we try to make a rubric with the 4 parts: the decompose, the algorithmic design, the pattern recognition, and the algorithmic design of the coding. And as you can see, the abstraction level was left out here because it was not necessary for the problems we used in our examples.
So I find it really good to use a rubric to evaluate skills, because it's not a test, it's just a skill we're developing. And so in the first column you can see the criteria, and then in the next columns there is the level of attainment the pupil will come to. So we try to make this one a self-evaluation, so it's put in the I form, and as an example, we will take the 3rd row, pattern recognition, where you can see in the intermediate level that it says I can make repetitions by copying blocks. And then I refer to some slides we had earlier with the security.
Security light.
Yeah, security light for the water slide.
Yeah.
There, the first string was the blocks just repeating. That's good, you're making a pattern recognition, but then you're not recognizing it perhaps as a pattern in C. So you can be an expert when you do the same thing, but when you use a loop. And so children can kind of see what the next level is and what they have to focus on in the next exercise, for example.
Mm-hmm. So each time you can adapt your rubric and use some kinds of criteria which you would like to focus on that time. Oh, this is already the end of our webinar. Ooh, I thought we still had some more issues to tell you about. Of course, we have a lot more to tell, but there was a time frame of about 30 minutes. So perhaps there are a few questions and we would like to answer them. And I hope Anushka or your
yes,
few
yes,
colleagues
we got it. I need to say I'm sorry that we were delayed with the poll. I had lost connection, so I'm very sorry. Yes, there were actually a few questions that I think you already illustrate or replied to very well in this webinar. The first one, for instance, was how to introduce these tools in the classroom. I think you covered that very, very well. But please, for all participants, do not hesitate to ask questions here in the chat, and we will go through them, as we speak. There was a second question that was given through the Google form. Is there any LEGO product that can be programmed using Scratch? So you have illustrated that a bit, but I don't know if you want to add some comments to that.
Yes, so the question was whether Scratch can be used to incorporate it with LEGO WeDo. Mm-hmm. Yes, it can, no problem. As an example, my boy of 11 years old already discovered himself how to use Scratch with the LEGO WeDo 2.0 without giving some feedback or some information from me. So it really is a low entry level and it really is a high ceiling. But it's very easy to use, so we really would like to recommend it if you want to try out as well with LEGO WeDo.
Yeah, I think that's okay. Sorry, there is a question in the chat as well on how can if you could recommend some courses or workshop on how to use EV3 at secondary school level. Yes, if you could recommend some courses or workshops on using EV3 at secondary level.
Yeah, if you mean for certain books or certain courses, we would like to use the EV3 but all other products in a context where they can use it in their daily life. So we cannot recommend any educational books or something, because we noticed that most of our teachers in Belgium make their courses themselves, and there's not a generic course which is okay to use to cover all the goals they have to achieve in our educational system.
But usually they just start from something at hand, mostly something unexpectedly that pupils just cross a problem, and you go on and try to incorporate EV3. But the suggestions we have made can be used both on primary level and secondary level.
Mm-hmm. For example, we noticed when we gave some workshops, for example, the EV3 is very good to use with a mathematical approach, whereas the WeDo 2.0 is more difficult because it has less possibilities in the programming. But teachers have to see the possibilities with the LEGO products as an instrument. It's not the goal to use it, but an instrument to achieve a goal about some, for example, mathematical issues like an equation in a certain way.
We have several questions, so I'll just jump in. If you could describe LEGO Boost set education possibilities in school. So could you describe LEGO Boost set educational possibilities in schools?
Yeah, the LEGO Boost set is quite new, as you all know. We also use it to try it out. What we noticed that is more playful approach, of course, here, and not as open task as it could be, because you have to follow a lot of guidelines to build your robot or your cat or your industrial park. Um, so we are still figuring out how we can incorporate this, but I think it's a good item to start robotics with the LEGO Boost before, for example, you start with the LEGO 2.0. I don't know if you want to add something.
Yes, it kind of is the same answer as the previous question. You can use it in your own setting. If you can find an assignment which incorporates the elements of LEGO Boost, then it's okay to use.
The problem with the LEGO Boost perhaps is that the building blocks we notice, which are very good and very visual attractive, has a lot of, as I can call it, subroutines. For example, there's a block which moves the motor and gives a sound as well. So it could be quite difficult for youngsters to determine, okay, what does this block do? And also the software environment of the LEGO Boost is not always the same. It differs when you are in a certain project. So that are a few things you have.
Another question, is WeDo 2.0 compatible with Windows 7?
That's a technical question. I believe so. We had some problems in the past using the LEGO 2.0, the WeDo, sorry, 2.0 on the Windows 10 operating system, and we use it on the Windows 8. So I suppose it will be backwards compatible, and it will be usable as a Windows Vista or Windows 7. But there's a question that will be asked, or will be answered on the.
Okay, then we have another few questions, if you don't mind. How much time is necessary to do these activities, to carry out these activities?
Well, it depends. And it depends on your objective for the lesson. What is your aim? What do you want to achieve at the end of the lesson? But the startup activities would take about, I don't know what an hour is in all your countries, but here it's like 50 minutes is a standard hour. And it will take at least one standard hour to get started. And then depending on, well, we like to differentiate. So pupils who have lots of experience or at home using Scratch, for example, they will go much faster. So they will be given a different task, and maybe they will do 2 tasks in one lesson of 50 minutes, and other ones will be a bit slower. But then again, it's your educational system, I guess, that will define how many time it will take. But usually we'll take 50 minutes for an introductory lesson, and then from there on you can use simple tasks, which will take 20, 30 minutes, or you can take a larger task, which will go up to 2 or 3 hours.
Sometimes it's also very good to point out for the pupils that the focus is not on the building part. It has to be creative, and they have to think out of the box. But sometimes I really have to focus on the communication part to teach each other actually new things and giving each other new insights about a problem. So for example, it could be possible that building a car park is focused on the build for an hour, but you also can say you only have 10 minutes for the build, but for the computational thinking and the coding parts, we take 2 hours. So it really is about the focus you put with your workshop.
And also for the sharing, for example, with the WeDo 2.0, you can make them make a video which is incorporated in the program, and they can share their products or their coding.
Indeed. And then we have an interesting controversial question. Why should we choose LEGO robots as educational material? Why not the others?
Why not use
other products, other tools?
Oh, there are a lot of tools, of course,
Yes.
and the only reason we use this is that as a teacher training school here, we make a choice to suggest LEGO Education products as one of those possibilities. Of course, there are other tools, there are other robots on the market, other computational thinking devices.
We use other tools as well.
Yeah, of course.
We use Scratch, we use Osmo, we use
Bebot,
lots of things.
Yeah. So it's the tool actually the school would like to buy, first of all, and what they think it can be used.
But the one thing which is very clear is that there are very few limitations when you use LEGO Education, as in Scratch, for example, as well. And it's very durable.
Indeed. Then we also have a comment, actually. It's not really a question, but I would like to share it with you. So one of the participants said that they are planning a training program on coding for adults with basic or no digital skills. So they wanted to share this because they thought that this kind of webinar could be inspiring also for their teams of facilitators. So I think that probably you can also share with this participant the idea that introducing coding and robotics and computational thinking through robotics can also be stimulating for adults. Okay, that's very good. So you were talking about a community of practice with LEGO Robotics, educational robotics. So I think this is very interesting. And it brings me to another comment I had from my side. So as I was saying at the beginning of this webinar, we are doing this webinar marathon. So we have a series of webinars on computational thinking, robotics, coding as part of the Code Week. And we're actually asking all participants and all experts we're in contact with to contribute to our community on I-LINC. So if you go to the digital skills community in I-LINC, you can see that we have a thread of discussion, because the idea would be to have a toolkit for teachers on how to introduce robotics. So especially for the two experts here, but also for all participants. If you have some teaching ideas, it can be as simple as a paragraph. We would really be pleased if you could add that in the community discussion. Thank you very much for this. Yes, and here Oscar just shared the link to the community. You need to be a registered user to be able to access the community, but once you register, you can share your ideas there. As I was saying before, it can be just a simple idea. It doesn't have to be like a full lesson plan or a workshop or a course. It can simply be an idea. And at the end of the project, we will share all this collective effort and contributions. But then I was also interested in knowing a bit more where we can find, the communities of people who are working with LEGO Education.
I suggest we'll mail you the link to the LEGO community site, where you can ask some questions to experienced users as well. We are also on the platform, but also about technical issues, about didactical approaches. And perhaps there's a good one to start with, then sharing ideas as well. So there's a LEGO community online. It's like a discussion forum where several users of LEGO.
So this is great. So we're going to share this link with all participants to this webinar, because we have all email addresses, and also to the people who registered to the webinar but they couldn't make it. So there is Anastasia who is sharing an idea. Sorry, yes, Anastasia is sharing an idea in the chat.
Superb.
Yeah, with the cards on one side they have the character, the letter, and on the other side they have the RC code. There's an idea that is simple and fun. So, well, thank you very much. Here you're sharing your email addresses. Thanks a lot for this very interesting presentation. I think it was very clear, informative, and I think you have enthused all people present here in this webinar. It really feels like we want to go back to our tools and start making things.